In the early summer of 2025, President Donald Trump announced the development of a new national defense system, one that he claimed would, quote, forever end the missile threat to the American homeland. Some compared it to Israel's Iron Dome, the short-range air defense system designed to detect and destroy incoming strikes against the nation. However, the American president's proposal went far beyond that. For some, it sounded like an almost impossible creation, but Trump left no room for doubt, declaring, quote, we will be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago. During the 1980s, as the fear of Soviet missiles raining down on American cities appeared closer than ever, President Ronald Reagan began to come up with the idea for a bold defense system that could serve as the nation's ultimate shield. The system, known as Brilliant Pebbles, would deploy thousands of small satellites into space. Once in orbit, they would begin their journey to set base over the Soviet Union, where, using their integrated missile tracking technology, they would be ready to destroy any incoming enemy rockets long before they could even come close to U.S. shores. However, Reagan's ambitious program soon clashed with the technological limitations of its time. No developer could bring Brilliant Pebbles to life, leaving no alternative for the American president and fellow Allied leaders but to rely on more conventional, ground-based interceptor systems. But now, 4 decades after Reagan proposed the dream of a space-based missile shield, President Trump is determined not only to revive the concept, but to make it fully operational before the end of his second term in 2029. Although some details of this new initiative, known as the Golden Dome, remain classified, its current proposal describes what could become one of the most elaborate and complex defensive technologies ever conceived. During an announcement at the Oval Office, President Trump declared, quote, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they're launched from the other side of the world, and even if they're launched from space. Hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles, all of them will be knocked out of the air, with a success rate very close to 100%. Of course, a shield like this will only be possible through the most advanced technologies on Earth, but fortunately for President Trump, many of America's top defense contractors are already lining up to put their systems up in space. Among the top contenders poised to take the lead in the Golden Dome's construction is defense and aerospace giant Lockheed Martin, which is actively bringing together experts from across the industry in what's been described as a, quote, Manhattan Project-scale mission. As of now, the company's main line of defense is the Command and Control, Battle Management, and Communications Network, better known as C2BMC, a global system that functions day and night. Manned by skilled professionals and supported by advanced data processing computers, it constantly scans the skies for potential threats to the United States and its allies. To help with this difficult job, C2BMC relies on the Space-Based Infrared System, or SBIRS, a constellation of Lockheed-built satellites that serves as its eyes in space, allowing operators to maintain uninterrupted watch over even the most remote regions of the planet. Once these sentinels identify an incoming threat, ground-based systems can immediately deploy a range of interceptors to neutralize it. This includes the Next-Gen Interceptor, currently being developed by Lockheed Martin and expected to become one of the most advanced defensive rockets in America's arsenal, capable of destroying missiles launched from beyond Earth's atmosphere. However, despite the impressive capabilities of these systems, none can yet guarantee absolute protection for the country. That's why Lockheed Martin is working to build upon them, advancing toward a new generation of defense technologies that will ensure the Golden Dome not only works once it's deployed, but also protects the U.S. even against the most brutal and overwhelming attacks. The road ahead is still long, but the company has stated that through these innovations, it could soon end up producing one of its most ambitious projects yet, a missile-killing satellite that could finally turn Reagan's vision of Brilliant Pebbles, which once sounded like the stuff of science fiction, into reality. Not long after Trump's official announcement on the progress of the Golden Dome project, a Lockheed Martin spokesperson declared, quote, the goal is by 2028 to field an on-orbit demonstration of a space-based interceptor. We have the capability to do that. We're ready to support. As of now, there are no specific details about how a system like this would work. However, experts have already begun to speculate. The system could likely incorporate the proven infrared technologies of space networks, such as SBIRS, but this time the satellites would not only report back to ground crews about an incoming threat, they would also be able to take action immediately. According to some experts, once target confirmation and engagement were approved by operators, the satellite itself could strike the payload using an advanced laser system designed to trigger an early detonation before the warhead even begins its descent. Others suggest an alternative approach, in which the satellite would disengage from its orbit and begin chasing the enemy projectile, using its own fuselage as a kinetic weapon to destroy the target through direct impact. This last method, of course, presents a number of significant challenges, most notably the constant need for satellite replacement, which in the event of a large-scale attack would be nearly impossible to sustain. Because of this, some believe the final version of the system may adopt a more conventional approach, pairing each satellite with a set of small interceptor missiles that could be launched against incoming threats. Such a configuration would closely resemble the original concept proposed during Reagan's administration in the 1980s. For now, however, all these ideas remain only theories. Lockheed Martin and its partners know they are entering uncharted territory by attempting to design a space weapon unlike anything ever built. Before they can make a final decision on the model, they must first determine whether any of these approaches can actually function once deployed. To address this, the company has confirmed that as its satellite interceptor enters early development stages, it has built what it describes as a prototyping hub, a facility where engineers can simulate orbital conditions and test different designs as if they were already operating in space. This will allow engineers to identify the most effective configurations, engagement tactics, and response sequences for the new system. Still, even with these innovations, the company's quest to make these systems fully functional will not be easy. Experts emphasize that even if Lockheed Martin succeeds in building the most advanced and lethal space-based defense system, simply getting it into orbit will only be half the battle. The far greater challenge will be keeping it operational and ready to defend. Given that such satellites would most likely need to operate in low Earth orbit to spot and react to incoming threats effectively, atmospheric drag would wear them down quickly, forcing the U.S. government to be on a constant mission to replace them, even during periods without active space conflict. Such maintenance demands could dramatically raise the cost of the overall Golden Dome program, which the White House currently estimates at $175 billion, while congressional projections place it as high as $831 billion. Leaving these budgetary concerns aside, the U.S. space defense program must also determine which company will provide the rockets needed to launch this continuous stream of satellites into orbit, delivering contracts that could later be revised or even canceled by future administrations, potentially leaving a billion-dollar constellation of obsolete satellites circling the Earth. But even when facing these obstacles, the United States may not have the luxury of stepping back from constructing the Golden Dome or its satellites. As tensions with China intensify, U.S. officials warn that without rapid investment in more advanced defense systems, the nation could find itself at a fatal disadvantage in any future confrontation. Experts note that China already possesses hypersonic ballistic missiles, believed to be capable of traveling 5 times the speed of sound and carrying nuclear payloads across oceans with minimal chance of interception by traditional systems. If these weapons are indeed fully operational, Lockheed Martin's satellite interceptor system cannot come soon enough, as the future of the United States may very well depend on them.